Kaylee Hottle, the young actress known for her role in the Godzilla vs. Kong franchise, has died after a tragic car accident. She was 18.
One moment, Kaylee Hottle was being celebrated as one of Hollywood's brightest young stars and a powerful voice for authentic deaf representation. The next, she was gone. Her impact reached far beyond the two blockbuster films that made her famous. Kaylee Hottle is dead at 18. Today, we'll examine the reported cause of the Godzilla vs. Kong star's death, the latest funeral updates, and how a young girl from a multi-generational deaf family unexpectedly became the emotional heart of the MonsterVerse, leaving a lasting mark on Hollywood before her life was tragically cut short. A life cut tragically short. On July 21, 2026, Kaylee Hottle, the young actress who brought the character Gia to life in the Godzilla and Kong films, was dead at just 18 years old. For many moviegoers, Kaylee had been the emotional heart of the MonsterVerse, the quiet young girl whose bond with Kong gave the giant ape something he had rarely been given on screen: a genuine family. The accident itself unfolded in the early hours of the morning in Frederick County, Maryland, near the community of Ijamsville. According to the Frederick County Sheriff's Office, Kaylee was riding as a passenger in a 1995 Honda Accord shortly before 3 o'clock in the morning. The vehicle left the roadway before striking a culvert. Authorities later said that excessive speed was believed to have contributed to the crash, although the investigation remained ongoing. Kaylee was one of two passengers in the car. The 19-year-old driver survived with non-life-threatening injuries, while another passenger declined medical treatment. Emergency responders rushed Kaylee toward a nearby trauma center, but despite their efforts, she died before reaching the hospital. The Maryland office of the chief medical examiner later determined that she had suffered multiple blunt force injuries. Her death was officially ruled an accident. Kaylee's family requested privacy, and no public funeral or burial details were announced. Her father, Joshua Hottle, traveled from Texas to Maryland for the painful task of bringing his daughter's body home. But beyond that, the family largely chose to grieve away from public view. Joshua Hottle, who is deaf like his daughter, shared the devastating news during a Facebook Live broadcast conducted in American Sign Language. One sentence quickly resonated around the world: "I am taking a flight that I never would like to take." He was referring to his journey to Maryland to bring Kaylee home. Tributes poured out from people who had genuinely worked alongside her, including actress Rebecca Hall, who shared behind-the-scenes photographs and remembered the warmth and joy Kaylee brought to the set. The Texas School for the Deaf, where Kaylee had been preparing to begin her senior year, also confirmed her passing and offered counseling and support for grieving students and staff. But what happened next would shock the whole world: a father's forgiveness and a family's grief. In the hours after Kaylee Hottle's death, the internet raced to fill the silence. Rumors spread faster than facts. Yet the first truly authentic account did not come from a television interview or a press conference. It came from a grieving father communicating in the language his daughter had spoken her entire life. Joshua Hottle, who is deaf, appeared in a deeply emotional Facebook Live broadcast using American Sign Language. Authorities believe excessive speed contributed to the crash, although the investigation remained open. The 19-year-old driver survived with injuries that were not considered life-threatening, while another passenger declined medical treatment. The Maryland office of the chief medical examiner later ruled Kaylee's death an accident caused by multiple blunt force injuries. It was a tragic sequence of events, but one that left an obvious question hanging in the air. How would her family respond to the young man behind the wheel? Joshua Hottle's answer surprised nearly everyone. Rather than publicly condemning the driver, he chose forgiveness. During his Facebook Live message, he urged the young man not to allow the accident to destroy the rest of his life as well. It was an extraordinary display of grace in the middle of overwhelming grief. While some observers admitted they struggled to understand such compassion so soon after such a devastating loss, others saw it as a reflection of the values Kaylee herself had embodied throughout her life. There has been no indication that Joshua minimized the tragedy or dismissed the seriousness of the crash. Instead, his words suggested that carrying hatred would only create another victim. Kaylee's mother, Kaylee Hottle, shared her own deeply personal tribute in American Sign Language. Rather than focusing on the circumstances of the accident, she reflected on motherhood itself. She signed that it had been a privilege to be Kaylee's mother and that she still felt her daughter's presence every day. Her heartfelt message deeply resonated throughout the deaf community. As speculation spread online, the family requested privacy. Despite countless videos claiming to reveal funeral details and private memorials, no official information was ever released. Instead of fueling rumors, those closest to Kaylee chose to honor her memory with quiet dignity, compassion, and love. Those heartfelt moments also raised an even bigger question. If an 18-year-old could inspire such extraordinary love, compassion, and admiration, then perhaps her real story had only just begun. So, how did an 18-year-old leave behind a legacy this large? The girl Hollywood wasn't looking for until it found her. Long before audiences around the world knew her as Gia, the courageous deaf girl who could communicate with Kong through American Sign Language, Kaylee Hottle was simply a child growing up in a family where signing was everyday life. She was born on May 1, 2007, in Atlanta, Georgia, into a multi-generational deaf family. American Sign Language, or ASL, was her first language. Unlike many deaf children who are born to hearing parents, Kaylee was immersed in deaf culture from birth. Her father, Joshua Hottle, has said his side of the family spans 4 generations of deaf relatives, making ASL the language of home, family, humor, and identity. That background would later become one of the very reasons Hollywood chose her. But at the time, the film industry didn't even know she existed. She eventually attended the Texas School for the Deaf in Austin, one of the oldest public schools for deaf students in the United States, where she was known not only as a student, but also as a member of the school's track and field program. Friends remembered her as outgoing, energetic, and deeply connected to her classmates. There were no acting coaches, expensive auditions, or years spent chasing Hollywood dreams. In fact, compared to most young actors, her resume was almost empty. She wasn't represented by one of Los Angeles's powerful talent agencies. She wasn't appearing in television sitcoms or competing for Disney Channel roles. If anything, her life looked remarkably ordinary. The only on-camera work Kaylee had done consisted of a handful of commercials created specifically for the deaf community. She appeared in advertisements for Convo Relay, a video relay service that allows deaf users to communicate with hearing people through certified interpreters, and for Glide, a video messaging application that gained popularity by allowing people to communicate visually rather than through traditional phone calls. These were not national Super Bowl commercials or glamorous advertising campaigns. They were practical projects designed to serve a community that Hollywood had long overlooked. Yet, hidden within one of those advertisements was an opportunity no one could have predicted. Around the time Legendary Pictures began developing Godzilla vs. Kong, filmmakers faced an unusual casting challenge. The screenplay called for a young deaf girl named Gia, the last surviving member of the Iwi people from Skull Island. The production was determined to cast an actress who was genuinely deaf, rather than asking a hearing performer to imitate deaf culture and learn sign language for the role. It was an important creative decision, especially in an industry that had often been criticized for casting hearing actors in deaf roles. Casting directors searched extensively, but finding a young deaf actress with the right presence proved far more difficult than many expected. Then came the coincidence that changed everything. An assistant director who had previously worked on Kong. Skull Island happened to see one of Kaylee's Convo Relay commercials. It wasn't an audition tape, a dramatic monologue, or a polished acting reel, but something about Kaylee immediately stood out. The assistant director believed she naturally matched the description of Gia and recommended that the casting team bring her in. Years later, Kaylee herself explained that she had never expected such an opportunity. One recommendation led to an audition, and one audition led to another. Suddenly, a teenager with almost no professional acting experience found herself competing for a major role in one of Hollywood's biggest blockbuster franchises. That journey broke nearly every rule people assume about breaking into the film industry. Kaylee did not spend years climbing the entertainment ladder. She had no famous parents, no viral social media following, and no lengthy list of acting credits. Instead, what impressed filmmakers was her authenticity. She communicated effortlessly in ASL because it was her native language. She understood deaf culture because she had lived it every day of her life. Rather than asking her to become someone else, the filmmakers realized the character could become more authentic by embracing who Kaylee already was. The production team didn't simply cast Kaylee and move on. As filming approached, her presence influenced the project itself. Rebecca Hall and Alexander Skarsgård learned American Sign Language so they could communicate more naturally with her on and off camera, while director Adam Wingard encouraged an environment where ASL became part of the creative process rather than an obstacle to overcome. Even Gia's signing style reflected Kaylee's own fluency, instead of an artificial version created solely for the screen. Critics would later praise the emotional authenticity of Kong's relationship with Gia, noting that much of the film's heart came from moments that relied not on dialogue, but on silence, expression, and sign language. It was an unusual creative gamble for a blockbuster centered on giant monsters, and the audiences embraced it, becoming the heart of the MonsterVerse. Landing the role was only the beginning. The real surprise came once cameras started rolling. On paper, Gia could easily have been a supporting character in a franchise built around skyscraper-sized monsters. After all, the MonsterVerse had always been marketed around spectacular battles between Godzilla, Kong, and other titans. Human characters often served as little more than a bridge between the action sequences. But from the earliest drafts of Godzilla vs. Kong, director Adam Wingard and the creative team envisioned something different. Gia was not there simply to witness Kong's story. She was meant to become part of it. In many ways, she would become the one person Kong trusted more than anyone else, transforming a giant monster into a deeply emotional character. Gia's backstory was as tragic as it was compelling. She was introduced as the last known survivor of the Iwi people of Skull Island after a devastating storm wiped out the island's remaining inhabitants. Orphaned and profoundly deaf, she was adopted by anthropological linguist Dr. Eileen Andrews, played by Rebecca Hall. But Gia possessed something no scientist could fully explain. She had formed an extraordinary bond with Kong, communicating through American Sign Language and instinctively understanding the giant ape's emotions. Rather than treating Gia's deafness as a limitation, the film presented it as an ordinary part of who she was. That subtle choice distinguished the character from many earlier portrayals of deaf people in mainstream cinema, where disability often became the central storyline instead of simply one aspect of a complex person. Authenticity was central to that vision. Adam Wingard has spoken about wanting a genuinely deaf actress to portray Gia rather than casting a hearing performer and teaching her to sign. Rebecca Hall and Alexander Skarsgård both learned American Sign Language, so they could communicate more naturally with Kaylee during filming instead of relying exclusively on interpreters. Hall later described the experience as "highly rewarding," while Skarsgård admired Kaylee's confidence despite it being her first feature film. Their efforts extended beyond memorizing signs required for scenes. Cast and crew wanted genuine communication between takes as well. creating a more inclusive working environment. For many observers within the deaf community, that behind-the-scenes commitment mattered almost as much as what ultimately appeared on screen. It demonstrated a degree of respect that extended beyond the camera. Perhaps the greatest compliment Kaylee received came from Alexander Skarsgård himself. Reflecting on her performance, he remarked that she steals the movie. It was high praise, coming from an established actor sharing the screen with visual effects, legendary monsters, and an international cast. Critics reached similar conclusions after the film's release in March of 2021. Reviews repeatedly highlighted Gia as the emotional center of the story, noting that some of the film's most memorable scenes involved no spoken dialogue at all. Instead, simple exchanges in American Sign Language between Kaylee and Kong conveyed grief, trust, fear, and hope more effectively than lengthy conversations ever could. The success of Gia ensured that Kaylee's journey with the MonsterVerse would not end there. When Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire arrived in March of 2024, Gia returned with a significantly expanded role. The sequel explored her mysterious connection to the ancient Iwi civilization, suggesting that her relationship with Kong might be part of a much larger destiny stretching back thousands of years. While the franchise leaned further into its mythology of Hollow Earth and ancient titans, Gia remained an emotional anchor. Kaylee's performance in the sequel also earned her a Saturn Award nomination for Best Performance by a Younger Actor, recognition from the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films. But you see, there's more to her story, her legacy. More than an actress. By the time audiences fell in love with Gia, Kaylee Hottle had quietly become something much bigger than a promising young actress. Without seeking the spotlight, she had become one of the most visible advocates for authentic deaf representation in modern Hollywood. It wasn't because she gave fiery speeches or launched national campaigns. Instead, her very presence challenged decades of industry tradition. For generations, deaf characters in film and television had often been portrayed by hearing actors who learned enough sign language to perform a role. Those performances were sometimes praised, but they also sparked growing criticism from the deaf community, which argued that authentic lived experience could never be fully replicated. Kaylee's success became powerful evidence that studios did not have to compromise between authenticity and great storytelling. She spoke about that belief with remarkable clarity, despite her young age. During interviews promoting Godzilla vs. Kong, Kaylee explained that deaf actors should play deaf characters. It was a simple statement, yet it touched on a debate that had existed in Hollywood for decades. American Sign Language is much more than hand gestures. It has its own grammar, facial expressions, rhythm, and cultural identity, making it distinct from spoken English. Kaylee believed authentic representation came from lived experience rather than imitation. Long before Hollywood recognized her, she appeared in commercials for Convo Relay and Glide, promoting accessibility and visual communication while supporting the deaf community through projects designed specifically for its needs. As Kaylee's profile grew, so did her influence. Deaf parents frequently shared stories online about their children seeing themselves reflected on the big screen for perhaps the first time in a major Hollywood blockbuster. For hearing audiences, Gia introduced American Sign Language as something natural and expressive, rather than unfamiliar or intimidating. For deaf viewers, however, the experience was even more meaningful. Here was a character whose deafness was neither a weakness nor the central conflict of the story. Gia was brave, compassionate, intelligent, and essential to the plot. Many advocates described that kind of representation as transformative because it normalized deaf identity instead of treating it as something that required explanation. Without intending to become a role model, Kaylee inspired countless young deaf children to imagine possibilities that had previously seemed out of reach. What made those achievements even more remarkable was how ordinary much of her daily life remained. Despite appearing in internationally successful films, Kaylee was still a student at the Texas School for the Deaf. She balanced schoolwork, friendships, and extracurricular activities alongside international press events, red carpet premieres, and film productions. Classmates remembered her as approachable rather than celebrity-minded, and the school later described her as a valued member of its community. It is easy to forget that while audiences watched her share the screen with Kong and Godzilla, she was simultaneously preparing homework assignments and looking forward to her senior year of high school. The future also appeared remarkably bright. Before her death, Kaylee had already been cast in another feature film titled What Doesn't Kill Us. Although the project had not yet been released, the casting suggested that filmmakers saw far more than a one-time success. Industry observers believed she was positioned to become one of Hollywood's leading young deaf performers, especially as conversations about authentic casting continued gaining momentum. While it is impossible to know how her career might have unfolded, the opportunities arriving so early strongly suggest that Godzilla vs. Kong was only the beginning. Following her death, tributes reflected just how deeply she had touched those around her. Rebecca Hall shared behind-the-scenes photographs and remembered Kaylee with the simple but heartfelt message, "You will be missed." Fellow deaf performers, including Academy Award winner Troy Kotsur and Oscar winner Marlee Matlin, joined countless fans in celebrating her accomplishments and mourning the loss of a young talent whose potential seemed limitless. Her acting career lasted only a handful of years, yet its impact may be measured in generations. The monsters made the headlines, but it was one quiet young actress who changed the conversation. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Did you like this video? If you did, please consider liking, dropping a comment, and hitting the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on our new uploads. Also, don't miss this video you see on your screen right now. It's truly unbelievable.